Hey, welcome. So this video is about one of the most common things I hear when I ask people how their meditation practice is going. And it's, I don't know if I'm doing it right, or am I doing it right? And of course, meditation is kind of really complex and kind of difficult. And often people have an expectation of like getting the hang of it, or like, okay, this almost like a promise that they're going to get this result, or this is how it's going to feel. And so they're doing it and maybe they're not feeling those results, or it's not meeting those expectations of peace or tranquility. And then they wonder, am I really doing it right? Or maybe I could be doing it differently and getting a better result. So I've heard other teachers address this question, and usually they're like, oh, don't worry, you're doing it right. But maybe you're not actually doing it right. Maybe you're actually doing the practice wrong, because you could be, because I've done the practice wrong before. So we're going to get into that and explore how to know if we're doing the practice right, if we're really meditating the way we should be. So the first thing is, do you know what technique you're doing? And can you explain that technique to somebody else? So there are many types of meditation techniques. There are two kind of main categories, which is shamatha, which is like a focus-based practice where you're trying to really just bring all your attention and awareness into one point, to one-pointed focusedness. And then there's Vipassana style practice, which is more about being aware. It's not really trying to control your attention so much as trying to be aware of what's happening in the space of awareness, right? It's trying to watch your experience. So with shamatha, it's pretty easy to know if you're doing the practice correctly, which is, are you bringing your mind back when it wanders? It's pretty much that simple, is when your mind wanders to something else, are you just ruminating on that thing for like, minutes on end and not bringing your mind back? Or do you eventually catch yourself and bring your mind back to the object of meditation? And do you stick with the practice for the designated amount of time? Let's say you're doing a 10-minute meditation. Do you stick with that practice? Do you bring your mind back over and over? Or do you decide halfway through that you're going to do some other practice? So if you just keep bringing your mind back to the object of focus, often it's the breath, then you're doing it correctly. With Vipassana style practice, it's maybe not as straightforward. The idea is that we're trying to watch what's happening in our experience, and there's a lot of different things we can pay attention to. For example, we could be watching different body sensations. We could be doing body scans, which is considered a Vipassana practice, even though some aspects of it are more on the kind of shamatha leaning. It's kind of like a blend of the two. The main thing with Vipassana is that you're trying to stay aware of sensory experience. So the sensory experience could be thoughts, like our visual thinking and our auditory sensations and thinking, could be aware of our body sensations, could be aware of how we're perceiving the world around us, or just trying to watch our attention jump around from our thinking to body sensations to being aware of the environment around us. So with Vipassana, you want to be clear on what you're paying attention to. Are you trying to just focus on paying attention to body sensations? Are you going to just work on your thoughts? And then just stay aware of that. See if you can watch that. Inevitably, we get pulled in, so it's coming back, stepping out, and coming back to a place of non-identification, which just means we're watching the experience, we're not in the experience. So we're just trying to observe our thoughts without being fully in the thoughts, or trying to observe our body sensation without being fully in it, without thinking it is us. So if you're not clear on the instructions when you're doing these types of practices, I have actually a bunch of Vipassana style practices on my channel where I give really clear instructions. You can check those out. I'll leave a link in description. So that's the first way to know if you're doing your practice correctly. Do you know what you're actually doing? Do you know the technique? Do you know it well enough to explain it to somebody else? If you don't, then find out. Ask your teacher, do some research, or check out my channel where I explain a bunch of practices. So the second thing you want to look at, and this is often really overlooked by a lot of practitioners, is your attitude. What attitude are you bringing to the practice? So a lot of A-types or perfectionists, they get so focused on getting the technique right that they end up kind of stressing themselves out, because you're going to get lost in thought. You're going to get distracted, and then they get judgmental. They say, oh no, I've been thinking. I shouldn't have been thinking. The reality is that you're going to have distractions. That's just the nature of our mind. It loves to run away. They call it the monkey mind. So fighting against that is just going to create more inner conflict. What we want to do is we want to be really gentle with our mind and accept that it's going to run away and gently bring it back. And this is all about the attitude we bring to it. Another way of describing this quality of being is equanimity. We want to be equanimous, which is bringing this attitude of acceptance to our experience. It's often talked about as non-judgment. We're not saying, oh, I don't like this or I like that. We're just accepting our experience fully, openly, allowing it to be totally as it is without trying to change it. It's being unattached to outcomes. And this is kind of the paradox of meditation, because on one hand, we're really trying to make an outcome. We're not doing it for no reason. If we're sitting down to meditate, there's a reason we're sitting down to meditate, and there is some goal. But part of that goal is being completely unattached to whatever happens. And this is where people get tripped up, is they get too attached. I need to meditate in this way. I need to get really focused. And then they get really kind of tight and constricted around their experience, and they're losing their sense of equanimity. So equanimity is actually a really big, deep, complex topic, although it seems quite simple, because there's so many ways in which our patterns that we've been our whole lives are not equanimous. So as we go deeper in our meditation practice, we become aware of areas or habits or ways of being that are not equanimous. And the challenge is to bring more equanimity, to accept those things as they are and to not try to change them. And through that, they can kind of loosen up and change and become more at ease. So I have a whole video on equanimity. I'll link to that in the description if you want to do more of a deep dive on that topic. Again, the second one is bringing the right attitude to meditation, not trying to get things done, not trying to make a lot happen, but just practicing being at ease and just flowing with whatever's happening. That's like really what it's all about. And especially if you're somebody who's really result oriented, this might be your primary practice, not so much bringing your attention back to your breath or whatever your objective is, but instead to just practice not doing anything, to just be at ease, practice letting go in the moment. That is a practice, and that is a great practice, and it's great to kind of balance that with other practices. So number 3, the third way of knowing if you're meditating right is, can you see the results of your practice, and do you know how to measure the results? So there's a great teacher by the name of Shinzen Young who I've learned an immense amount from, and I highly recommend if you're a meditation nerd like me and you want to get deep into the concepts. But the beauty of what he teaches is that he made a paradigm in which we can explore the results of practice, and it's very clear. And he talks about 3 different qualities we're looking for. He calls them attentional skills that we're developing. The first is the skill of concentration, which is paying attention to what we deem relevant. So shamatha, or focused style practices, are very good at doing this if we can do it, and if we're not in this constant war with ourselves while we're practicing. But if we can gently bring our mind back to our focus over and over, we will develop concentration. It's like a muscle. It's like going to the gym. You're probably not going to be very good at it at first, but with practice, it will improve. The second one is clarity, sensory clarity. How clear are we with what we're experiencing? And this is really the objective of Vipassana style practice, which is zooming in on our sensory experience. So it's being able to watch our thoughts and notice how they appear to us. What is it like to think? Where do our thoughts happen? And then what maybe feelings or reactivity is being triggered by the thoughts, and where is that reactivity happening in the body, and what does that feel like? Or what feelings come up when we have an experience, and then what thoughts are triggered by those feelings. So clarity is bringing more clarity to how we react and how we are on a moment-to-moment basis. It is looking at our body sensations, feelings, but then also our thoughts. Those are the 2 main areas of clarity, and the thoughts can even be subdivided into visual and auditory. I have practices on this and how to look at this in more detail. I'll also link to that, the clarity piece. And then the third one is equanimity, as I mentioned, which is just being open and flowing in our experience. And we can notice this in the reactivity that we have in our lives. When we get some bad news, when we encounter somebody we don't like, how reactive are we? And the key here with equanimity is accepting our reactivity. The more we fight our reactivity, the more reactive it becomes. It's like trying to contain a little baby monkey who's trying to run around, and trying to like hold him tight. He's just going to struggle more. So with equanimity, if we want to practice it, we actually want to practice just being okay with the reactivity. Noticing like, hey, these feelings come up when this happens, when I have this thought, or I see this person, I feel this way, and that's okay. And through the acceptance of the feeling, it becomes not so intense. So a lot more in the equanimity video, but that's it for this video. These are the ways in which you can determine if you're practicing right, if you're doing it right. Thanks for tuning in. Lots more to come on the channel. If you liked it, please like the video and subscribe and do all those things. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Bye.